Purvottar region of Bharat, otherwise known as the Northeast, has since independence been a fairly ignored, neglected region. One of the many reasons why it has probably remained somewhat isolated from the rest of the country until Modi ji came to power. And the recent electoral victory of the BJP in some of the states in the region, which are in fact Christian dominated, says that his 44 odd visits to this area in the last 5 years have not been in vain. Yet, the region's vulnerability cannot be overstated, and its problems and challenges are very unique, and they do not often make it to the headlines. To discuss some of these issues at length, I have with me today someone who is an expert on the Northeast. Namaste, I'm Pujita Krishna, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Ankita Dutta to this episode of our Current Affairs show. Dr. Ankita Dutta,
Namaste.
Assistant Professor for Northeast Studies at the Center for Indic Studies, Indus University. Welcome, Ankita ji. Thanks for making the time.
Namaste, Pujita ji. Thank you for that welcome note and the humble introduction. It's always a pleasure for me to be back at Citti Media. Thank you so much for the invite.
And yes, we've had you before also, and you're always gracious, to make time for us and for all your invaluable research that you do, and especially like we said on the region of the northeastern region of this country. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the questions, and I'm going to start by asking you about, everybody's talking about the recent, very surprising results at the, at the polls in the Northeast, the electoral victory of BJP, although in alliance, but still, nevertheless, their victory in some of these states, even Mizoram and Nagaland, and states which are otherwise Christian dominated. So, would you like to talk a little bit about how this has happened and what it means?
Yeah. Thank you, Pujita ji, for giving our audience a brief understanding of the context of what's really going on in the Northeast, especially after the ascendancy of the BJP into power. Now, if we remember, the BJP achieved a spectacular victory in the last year's Manipur Legislative Assembly elections of 2022, and undoubtedly it reflected a clear and decisive mandate on the part of the voters in the state for development and political stability. With its assertion to make a Congress Mukht or Congress free northeastern region, the BJP has been trying to consolidate its position in all the northeastern states. Of course, the outcome of the recent assembly polls in Tripura, Meghalaya, and Nagaland has already shown a welcome trend of the voters in northeast India, judging the parties on the basis of their performance on the ground and not attaching much importance to political rhetoric. In fact, the Congress party, which once dominated 7 of the 8 states in the Northeast, is at present almost nowhere in Meghalaya, Tripura, and Nagaland. And with the passage of time, the BJP, thanks to its wonderful organizational structure, has emerged as a fresh alternative in setting well calculated agendas and establishing contacts with new voters. On the contrary, the Congress party's what I would say tipping point in the Northeast has already reached. It has failed devastatingly on all fronts. But on the other hand, several political observers in the Northeast that I have spoken to in the recent past, they have considered the recently concluded assembly polls in the 3 states as the defining polls, which are actually going to play a crucial role in finding a solution to the vexed Naga problem and eventually shaping the political discourse of this region at least till the end of this decade. So, in a way, the BJP has indelibly imprinted itself onto the political space on the Northeast, and this is also going to have a significant impact on the forthcoming assembly elections in Mizoram later this year. But what is most important now is the fast tracking of the ongoing peace process with different armed groups and concluding peace accords, which is very crucial for sustaining the momentum of peace, especially in those areas where such accords have already been signed and militants have laid down illegal arms. State governments leveraging these accords and the subsequent reduction of the number of areas and districts under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act or AFSPA to attract investments into this region is certainly going to harbor a positive mindset for promoting economic growth and development of the region. Timely implementation of all clauses of the peace accords and an uncompromising commitment to peace will not just help build trust of the common people in the peace process, but also encourage more and more insurgent outfits which are still active to come forward for the negotiations. And in this context, I think swift resolution of the interstate boundary disputes among the different states of the Northeast is also of crucial importance, because this will deny extremist elements from taking any advantage, any undue advantage of the somewhat murky situation of law and order enforcement in the disputed areas, and then using these areas as launch pads for their extortions and other illegal activities. A non-resolution of the Naga conflict and the conflict zones along the Assam-Nagaland boundaries in Jorhat and Golaghat districts of Upper Assam has been largely responsible for keeping alive insurgent activities along these areas, especially in those districts of Manipur and Arunachal, which share a border with Nagaland and as well as Myanmar. So, this in part explains the continuation of the AFSPA in parts of Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh. There is a commonly held belief or perception that the northeastern states eventually align with the political forces occupying the occupying power at the center. But this is factually and historically incorrect, because if we recall, then Chief Minister of Assam, Torun Gogoi from the Congress party, he won in the elections of 2001 when the BJP was in power at the center. Similarly, in 2002 in Manipur, Okra Mibobi Singh had wrested power from an alliance of local political parties backed by a couple of BJP MLAs. So the center could not come to their rescue at that time. So, the social and political complexities of the Northeast as a region, it just cannot fit into one straitjacket with certain straightforward conclusions. And this is exactly what the BJP led Northeastern Democratic Alliance, or NEDA, has understood very well. Both the central and the state units of the BJP have come to appreciate and understand the vast nuances underlying the politics of this region. So they have therefore put in extra efforts to respect local interests and local sentiments in decision making. And compared to the Congress party, within a short span of the BJP's emergence in the Northeast, it has exhibited much required depth and political maturity, I would say, in handling the complex socio-political issues plaguing the region. And undoubtedly, in this context, the impressive ground level work of organizations such as the Akhil Bharatiya Vanavasi Kalyan Ashram over a period of several years has played an important role in facilitating this upward flight of the BJP in one of the most strategically located sensitive border regions of this country. And lastly, of course, Assam Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, who is now the strongman of the BJP in the Northeast, has equally played a very, very important role in enabling the party to occupy the reins of power in this region. I think that's all I have to say here.
No, I mean, that was very comprehensive. I mean, it's good to know that the presence of BJP is, it's probably the nature of how the organization works. It's ground up, right? So how the cadres, I mean, the cadre of the party, you think it's got a strong hold in these states, like wherever they, like in Nagaland or Meghalaya, where they've made a inroad, have they got a strong cadre base over there in these states?
They are gradually growing. Yes, in Tripura, Arunachal, the cadre base is very good. It's really very good.
It's nice.
Assam as well.
Assam. So,
Yeah.
good to know. I want to move on to this question, to the next question, which is got to do with something that has been a problem in the area for a long time, just to do with drugs and smuggling, etc. So let's focus on that a little bit. And could you update us on what's happening there? Because this, just like with Punjab, where drugs are a big problem, right? So it is with Northeast as well. So
True.
where do things stand now? And maybe you could also bring into context or bring into light the the efforts of Colonel Tripathi who died right in 2 3 years ago. So yeah, so if you could just I'll leave it to you if you could explain what's happening with it.
Sure. Yeah, this is a very, very pertinent question actually, because there has been a relentless crackdown on drug mafias in the state of Assam at present, especially after the coming to power of Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, which has definitely given some sleepless nights to the influential drug dealers and their multi-crore dollar drug cartels that spreads across the entire northeast and extends throughout the country. Uh, Dr. Sharma, along with some top police officials in the state, has been taking a tough stance against drug syndicates. Now, here I would like to mention about an incident. Since you mentioned about Colonel Tripathi, who was fighting against this drug menace when he was posted in Mizoram from the battalion
Battalion.
of the Assam Rifles. Yeah. So this incident took place just a few days back from today in a joint operation with the Assam police. Officials of the Assam Rifles had arrested three persons and seized over 100 grams of heroin worth rupees 50 lakh from Karimganj district of Barak Valley. I would now like to explain about this drug network in some detail since you have put across that specific question. Do we remember the border flare up that took place at a place called Kolasib along the Assam Mizoram border in July 2021? Immediately after the Chief Minister of Assam had launched a war against the billion-dollar narcotics business, and this was also the same time when Colonel Tripathi was posted in Mizoram. Mizoram is a Christian majority state, we know about it, and it has always served as the major gateway of illegal narcotics from Myanmar into India via Assam. Several Mizo Christian groups, such as Mizo Zirlai Paul, Young Mizo Association, etc., and some other NGOs too, are a part of this massive drug supply network in the Northeast, backed by huge cash and raw power. No doubt this has rattled their enormous business interests. The anti drug campaign of the Assam police has seriously damaged not just the drug mafia but also the illegal betel nut mafia in Mizoram. Because, just like the drug cartels, Mizoram soil is also being used for illicit betel nut trading, black marketing of fertilizers, and also cigarette smuggling from Myanmar. News reports of narcotics amounting to crores and crores of rupees being regularly seized, burned, and destroyed from different places across the Northeast have almost become regular headlines in the prominent local dailies of the region. And it is certain that because of this manhunt of the government of Assam, along together with the cooperation of the Assam Rifles against the drug mafia, the drug network that spans through Myanmar and Mizoram via Assam's Barak Valley and Bangladesh to Punjab and Afghanistan has suffered immense financial losses, because we all know how money laundering through narco terrorism helps in delinking this tainted money from any association with its criminal origin, and the long chain of cash transactions further renders it impossible to locate the original source of the money. Top drug smugglers and drug peddlers, they are continuously in the radar of the Assam police, with many of the top drug lords already being arrested. Now, see, we must understand that the drug mafia and their functionaries have close links with groups operating from Myanmar across the international border, with patronage from drug rackets in Mizoram. These links are being continuously used to enable the clandestine flow of drugs, including synthetic drugs from Myanmar to Mizoram and then to Assam and the rest of the country. So, the drug route that passes through Mizoram and Manipur to Assam has been the primary target of the Assam police. Do you want me to briefly go into the history of this illegal drug trafficking in the Northeast? How and when
Sure.
did it all begin?
Briefly, yes, and yes, you could connect it to the socio-cultural framework, like if it has any connections to Christianity, evangelism, if there is any, you
Sure,
could
sure.
probably just talk a little bit about that.
True, yeah, yeah. So, why has the Northeast always been a hotbed of illegal drug trafficking? how and when did it all begin? Yes, we need to understand this history in detail since you are talking about the insurgency problem here. Because if we look at the past history of this region, then the Northeast had never been a producer of narcotics. Whatever little was produced was meant for only local consumption, and it was never meant for any kind of illicit trade. Illegal trafficking of banned drugs and narcotics is a phenomenon that began here only during the post independence period. Unlike other insurgent movements, say the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam in Sri Lanka, that were involved in the illicit drug trade since the very beginning, the insurgent outfits of the Northeast were relying on various other means to raise funds initially. Like, for example, soon after its formation in April 1979, the ULFA, the United Liberation Front of Assam, went on a rampage to rob banks and extort money from the owners and managers of tea gardens and as well as the cash rich oil companies of Assam to buy arms from the Kachin insurgents of Myanmar. In the hill states too, that is Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, the insurgent groups routinely collect taxes from each household, government contractors, employees, private firms, shopkeepers and businessmen, etc. So as to finance their requirements of arms and ammunitions. The proceeds of these extortions from the local population have also been used by the leaders, the top leaders of several insurgent outfits to uh, amass for themselves huge properties both in India and abroad. But the situation on the ground changed rapidly with the entry of illegal narcotics into the scene and their clandestine trade that brings in the easy flow of raw cash, which has helped keep the insurgency going. Now, in order to oppose and fight the Indian state and the government, the insurgents needed weapons. Initially, they used to procure these weapons by snatching personal arms from ill-trained and complacent police and village guards. But very soon they became better organized. As soon as they became better organized, they began to raid isolated police outposts, often in connivance with corrupt policemen and administrative officers who were sympathetic to the cause of these insurgents. Gradually, this struggle was intensifying, and the insurgents required more and more sophisticated weapons so as to pose a formidable challenge to the state machinery. And this was when they needed huge amounts of cash, and quite predictably, illicit trade in narcotics eventually emerged as the best source to raise funds as and when they required. Now, in order to understand the different dimensions of this problem in detail, we need to revisit history while at the same time taking into account the specific geographical and strategic complexities of the Northeast that have played a role in facilitating the illegal trade of narcotics for several decades now. It began with the assistance that was being offered by the American Christian missionaries to the Kuomintang. Kuomintang, that is Chiang Kai shek's defeated nationalist forces, which had retreated to Taiwan by May 1949. It was after the capture of Yunnan by Mao Zedong's PLA, People's Liberation Army, that stragglers from the defeated KMT had fled to Myanmar. A part of this force under Chen Wei had trekked down to a place called Mong Pong in the extreme southeast of the Shan state of Myanmar and established contacts with Taipei. Their aim was to regroup with some other 5,000 some other KMT remnants who had fled to Laos and Cambodia and thereby reconquer Chiang Kai shek's lost provinces, beginning with Yunnan. Chiang Kai shek therefore decided to reinforce them, and this was the period of the beginning of the Korean War when North Koreans crossed the 38th parallel in June 1950, backed by China, as a result of which America made an entry into the war. Now, America was not yet involved with the KMT in Myanmar officially, but special covert operations were started to interfere with communist activities in Southeast Asia. American missionary assistance was offered to the KMT forces from their bases in Taipei and Bangkok. Encouraged by the Americans, the KMT made two abortive intrusions in Yunnan in 1951, but the expected rebellion inside Yunnan failed despite American support. In August 1952, another attempt was made, but that too failed. This now compelled the KMT to stand firmly against the communists in Myanmar. These operations required huge finances. The KMT was now controlling the Trans-Salween highlands in Myanmar where high quality opium grew. The opium farmers of Yunnan flooded these
Is it,
highlands in order to escape Mao Zedong's
Ankita,
ban on opium cultivation in China. Ironically,
I,
however, the opium
no,
traders
no, is
were
it
all
Is
Chinese
it
men of
Mao
wealth and
Zedong or Mao
influence.
Zedong?
Yes.
I'm confused.
So the Kuomintang now began to impose opium tax on the farmers, regardless of the type of crops that they were cultivating. With the encouragement of the KMT, poppy cultivation now spread to the hills, including those areas bordering India's northeast. And the American missionary-sponsored secret war continued till January 1961, when the Burmese army, backed by the PLA, took over control of the KMT base at a place called Mong Pa Leo and drove them to Laos. By now, the KMT's decade long presence in Myanmar had created a thriving narcotics and drugs industry, which it continued to exploit from its bases in Thailand and Vietnam. When KMT stragglers had trekked to Myanmar in 1949, Rangoon at that time was at war with many different insurgent outfits. And at that time, almost no opium grew in the areas of the rebellion, and none of the rebels dealt with any form of trade in narcotics. But towards the late 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, nearly all of these Christian insurgent groups depended in some measure or the other on the drug trade to finance their armies. And this was the same time when the dark clouds of insurgency were beginning to engulf several states of the Northeast one by one, but Manipur, Mizoram, and Nagaland in particular. And simultaneously, during this period, drug addiction was also on the rise here. This is I'm talking about the entire decade of the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, when opium cultivation in Myanmar and other areas of the Golden Triangle was at its peak. And until the end of 1983, morphine was commonly used by drug users in the northeastern states, particularly Manipur. But the trend changed suddenly, and the number of heroin addicts increased among all other narcotic drugs from the early part of 1984 onwards. And in 1990, the first case of HIV/AIDS was detected in both Manipur and Mizoram. In Manipur, the first such HIV positive case was reported from a blood sample in October 1989 among a cluster of IDUs injecting drug users. So from then onwards till now, the epidemic has been continuously spreading its tentacles in the Northeast, especially among the young population in these states. Of course, the most common reason being IDU, intravenous drug use. I think I took a lot of time in this.
That's
Uh,
fine. But I wanted you to reflect a little bit on, like, the missionary intervention, right? Why do you think that they propagate or promote these kind of activities? Why do they have, like, for example, they're backing for the drug trade? Why do you think they are involved in these kind of activities?
Uh, I think I have covered it briefly while I was talking about the insurgency. It has been a protracted struggle in the Northeast, especially in states like Nagaland and Manipur, where the insurgency has posed a formidable challenge to the established government. And when you are talking about the missionaries, I think we should leave aside all the benchmarks of what I would say political correctness, because we need to understand we need to understand the real reasons behind the never ending insurgency in Northeast India. Has it only been the result of economic backwardness or regional economic deprivation, as we have been made to believe up till now? Uh, is there any correlation between the beginning of insurgency here and the simultaneous decline of
Lines,
dharmic belief systems?
hardly.
Available research papers and books on this subject have only talked about the Eurocentric theories of racial conflict between the core and the periphery. So, like conflict between mainland India and the Northeast, which is the peripheral zone, then identity crisis, neglect by the center, geographical isolation, etc. But the subsequent rise of secessionist movements in the Northeast, with the gradual popularity of a foreign religion of Christianity in the post-independence era, needs to be understood in a historical backdrop. Because insurgency and secessionism have worked in tandem in this region of the country by first psychologically distancing and then separating people away from their own kinsmen and eventually the entire country. And insurgency in Northeast India did not develop all of a sudden and in all parts of the region simultaneously. So it was a pre-planned pogrom of the post-independent Indian state, thanks to our first prime minister, along with a British missionary whose name was Dr. Verrier Elwin.
Hmm. Yes, this is of course, this is a different, it's a topic for another day, perhaps, because I'm sure there's
True.
history associated with it. So yes, we'll come back to Christian evangelism because the story hasn't ended here, and I know there is more that you need to tell us about what's happening with respect to evangelism in the Northeast. But can you tell us a little bit? You did cover the Chinese and Burmese role, right, in the smuggling
Huh.
racket.
Yeah.
How entrenched is it? Is it now? Have Has the current dispensation been able to kind of, with all that's been happening with China, do you think that has reduced, or what's happening with their role in promoting these activities, the Chinese and
Yeah.
Burmese?
So I would also like to talk about the rhino horn smuggling racket in this context,
Yes,
and
rhino
also
horns.
the
Yes.
yeah, also the anti-drug drive of the government of Assam under Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma, because this is something that we need to understand in the context of drug trafficking and weapon smuggling from Myanmar, which has been the center of target of the government of Assam. Uh, we have heard something called yaba tablets, right? So, the smuggling of
Could
this
you
drug,
repeat
yaba
the,
tablets,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
yaba,
Mm,
yeah.
mm.
So, the smuggling of yaba tablets amounting to crores of rupees from Mizoram to this place called Neelam Bazar in Assam's Karimganj district via Manipur has almost become a regular affair along the border regions of the Northeast. Why? Because Yaba tablets are very, very easy to smuggle and they are difficult to trace. They are produced in the vast state of Myanmar. And these tablets, this drug, Yaba tablets, they are in high demand in the metro cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru. So, in this context, we need to understand the link of Assam's Karimganj district with the drug network that spreads across Myanmar and Mizoram via Manipur. Now, if we look at the map of Assam, Karimganj district in Barak Valley shares a riverine border with Bangladesh. And despite the patrolling by the border security force along the border, Karimganj has emerged as one of the major hotspots of cattle and drug smuggling, including banned drugs in the northeast. And despite an all out war launched by the Assam police, drug mafias and drug peddlers still continue to find leeway to smuggle drugs and contraband goods through the Myanmar Mizoram route, sidestepping security checkposts to make an entry into Karimganj district of southern Assam. Pharma drugs heading towards Bangladesh pass through Guwahati before being trafficked to other parts of the world. In this context, the railways have been the easiest and safest mode of transportation for these smugglers to smuggle not just drugs and arms, but also gold, foreign cigarettes, fake Indian currency, explosive substances, etc., from the Northeast and some of its neighboring countries. Now, to deceive the authorities, drug smugglers use different and unusual modes of transportation like vehicle engines, bumpers, tires, etc., to move their goods. And the most frequently and commonly used route is from Dimapur to the rest of the country and outside via Guwahati. So, at first, drugs worth hundreds of crores of rupees are first smuggled from Myanmar, and afterwards, various agents in Dimapur, they are posted at different places. These agents in Dimapur, they are each given consignments of these drugs worth rupees 2 crore to rupees 5 to 6 crore to distribute in various districts of Assam among the young people, and these are then further divided and distributed among top drug dealers in the state, so that this highly lucrative business can be expanded in different places throughout the state and beyond. Now, as a precautionary measure, what they do, drug traffickers from Dimapur, they use fake names while communicating with the drug dealers in Assam. And during one of the investigations, the Assam police had also found that drug smugglers opt for one time use of the SIM cards so as to avoid being caught. And it is because of these micro operations that the police indeed face a lot of challenges in busting the drug cartels. The smugglers have now begun adopting various novel methods to escape vigil from the law enforcement agencies, not just to smuggle banned drugs in and out, but also Burmese betel nuts, cattle, rhino horns, the cough syrup fencidal. I remember there is a very popular drug called crystal meth or methamphetamine,
Yes,
which is
yes.
being, yes, please, pardon. Yeah, say.
No, no, it's very popular because of the show Breaking Bad. No, meth is like crystal meth is
Meth,
very
huh?
popular in
Yeah,
India.
yes. So crystal meth, and this is being trafficked through Mizoram. Mizoram is the hotspot for this drug. It is being trafficked through Mizoram to Europe and the Middle Eastern countries. So these drugs, they not only serve as a substitute for alcohol, but they are also very easy to conceal and carry. And moreover, we all know, it is common knowledge that a small quantity of drug fetches very huge money, because a meth tablet costs around rupees 10 to rupees 20 in the border areas of Myanmar. In Mizoram, when it reaches Mizoram, it is around rupees 350 to rupees 500, but once it reaches mainland India, especially during the festive season from October till January, it comes to around rupees 3000. And in fact, the ongoing smuggling of foreign origin cigarettes, besides gold, explosives, weapons, and military stores, is a major cause of concern for the state of Mizoram, especially in those districts such as Lunglei, Saiha, and Champhai, which are situated along the Indo Myanmar border. And Mizoram is now emerging as one of the fastest growing hubs of gold smuggling from China. Six out of the total of 11 districts of Mizoram, they share a 510-kilometer long unfenced mountainous border with Myanmar's Chin state. And Mizoram also shares a 318-kilometer long unfenced border with Bangladesh. With almost all the other hill states of the Northeast being affected by insurgency in some form or the other, the most peaceful state of Mizoram is therefore considered to be a safe haven for smuggling of various kinds of drugs and other illegal substances and weapons. And the Assam Rifles are in a relentless pursuit to ensure peace and harmony in the region by thwarting any nefarious design of these insurgents. And yes, you were asking about the nexus between the drug smuggling racket based in Myanmar and the smuggling of rhino horns. Various insurgent organizations with their presence in Manipur and Myanmar, their cadres constitute a crucial link in the transnational rhino horn smuggling racket that extends to several countries of Southeast Asia and China via Myanmar. Now, we all know, it is by now an open secret that rhino horns fetch a very, very high price both in China and as well as the markets of Southeast Asia. And Assam has always been the primary smuggling route for the cross border trade of rhino horns into Myanmar. After strict law enforcement adversely affected the Nepalese poaching networks that extended till Tibet via Kathmandu. Assam's Daldali Forest Reserve in Karbi Anglong district is situated in the neighborhood of the world famous Kaziranga National Park. Now, we need to understand the geopolitical location of Karbi Anglong in this context, because Karbi Anglong district of Assam shares a border with Nagaland, and the region bordering Myanmar in Nagaland is quite well known for providing refuge to armed insurgents and rhino poachers. In one such incident of rhino horn poaching that took place in the year 2020 in the month of June at Agratoli on the eastern side of the Kaziranga National Park, the police had later apprehended one person, Mr. Syama from Churachandpur in Manipur. It was later revealed during the course of the investigation that Mr. Syama had received training with an insurgent outfit, the ZRA, that is the Zomi Revolutionary Army, but he quit the organization midway during his training and before he was officially inducted as one of its members. His brother, Paite, was killed during the gang's initial encounter with the forest guards in the KNP, the Kaziranga National Park. Several members of the gang later confessed to their active involvement in numerous rhino horn poaching incidents in the past as well. And it is noteworthy of mentioning here that camps of poachers have been busted from several places in Karbi Anglong and Dima Hasao districts of Assam, the two hill districts of Assam, during police raids at various times in the past few years. The leaders and financiers of these rhino poaching cartels are generally based somewhere along the remote borders of Manipur's Churachandpur district that shares a border with Myanmar. They engage the young people of these areas as small time drug peddlers who are continuously looking for earning some extra money because of lack of employment and all other issues. But then, in due course of time, these people they themselves fall prey to drug addiction. I think that's all I have to say. Otherwise, it's a very huge topic.
It's a very complicated, yeah, I know there's a lot of information, and I think for there's so much, right? And also for people to remember, retain this kind of information, but we need to keep talking about it every now and then. So yes, it is a complicated problem. From what you tell me, the challenges are mainly because these states are so. First of all, the borders are porous to some extent, right?
True.
With Bangladesh, Myanmar. So it leaves these areas, especially states like Mizoram or Assam, the ones which are bordering the other nations like Burma and China. They're very, very vulnerable. And I think these problems are getting accentuated and aggravated because they are that vulnerable.
Yeah.
And obviously the added problem of rise in Christianity and the fall of dharmic belief systems has contributed, I'm sure, greatly to the current scenario. And yes, so a lot has to be so going by what you're saying, Ankita ji, it seems like there is a complex network of of all kinds of people, the nexus of smugglers of drugs, smugglers of rhino horns, smugglers of insurgents, and then the missionaries. So it's not easy, this problem, and it's
All
all
entangled,
over
dangerous web.
yeah, dangerous web, yes. And then, of course, now we move on to another angle which we haven't talked about so far, and it's about the rise of, even the Bangladeshi immigrants, right? The Islamic immigrants, from Bangladesh coming into Assam, and the Rohingyas and all of that. So,
Yeah.
in the context of that, in the light of that, could you talk about the Mias? I read an article about this. The Mia community, there seems to be some controversy surrounding people. Could you throw some light on this issue, please?
Yeah, good question. I think for anyone who is familiar with the politics and demography of Assam, Mia is a colloquial form of address that is used by most common men and women in Assam to
Oh, like
designate.
Mia, to Muslim gentlemen is called Mia, I understand. Yes.
Yeah, but in Assam, it is a colloquial form of address, as I mentioned, that is used by the Assamese Hindus, the common men and women, the common Hindu Assamese men and women, to designate those Muslims who are residing in Assam and who are of a dubious nationality. So,
Oh.
the word Mia is a commonplace reference that we often get to hear in Assam during conversations, and it is used to describe uh, these people's language, their food habits, and culture, which are very different from the Assamese Hindu community. And the fact that there exists a genuine reason behind the prevalence of this discontent in Assam since the days of the Assam agitation cannot anymore be downplayed. Many areas in lower Assam where most of these so called immigrants are concentrated because they are not immigrants, they are infiltrators. And many areas in lower Assam where these people are confined, these areas, these districts are contiguous to the international border with Bangladesh. Between the two census years, 2001 to 2011, if we look at the Muslim population in Assam, it had risen considerably. There were six Muslim dominated districts in Assam in 2001, but it had increased to nine in the census of 2011. The constituency of Badruddin Ajmal Dhubri in Lower Assam, it had the largest Muslim population of 80%, whereas Borpeta district in Lower Assam showed the highest growth rate of Muslims between the two census years of around 12%. So, these might sound like politically incorrect concerns or even academically suicidal to talk about, but then we cannot leave out certain genuine questions which need to be asked. Like, are these figures a mere Hindu Muslim concern, or it is a larger concern of illegal infiltration from across the border? There is a definite sense of fear among the people of Assam now of becoming an alien in their own land. And this has got more to do with culture than religion. There has been a continuous disappearance of non Muslim ethnic subgroups from the Muslim dominated districts. So, in such a situation, the fact that the assertion of a separate branch of Mia poetry or Mia language or the establishment of a separate Mia museum by the East Bengal origin Muslims in Assam contains the seeds of separate nationhood, that proudly disowns India and an Indian identity. These are things that cannot be overlooked in the context of the country's national security.
Could
Yes,
I just
please continue.
interrupt for a second? So you're saying the Mia community is a recently settled community, a community that has recently arrived in the Assam in Assam, and they
No, they
recognize
have
the fact
recently
that they are.
begun asserting their identity. They have always been there because the immigration problem, the infiltration problem had always plagued Assam since a long time now. But the assertion of this identity by the Mia community, that is the East Bengal origin Muslims, this is something which is a recent phenomenon that I'm saying.
They are saying the assertion now is that although we live in India, we're in Assam, they still cling to their East Bengal, which is Bangladeshi identity.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, and also I think we must not forget that the simple and peace loving people of Assam, they have had their own share of contribution in facilitating the upward economic mobility of this section of people known as Mias. But then, by vouching for a separate micro identity within the larger Assamese identity, the implicit demand of this community is for the creation of another separate nation outside of the Indian nation, which is a serious existential danger.
Are they also looking for, or are they also lobbying for reservations or things like that? Because oftentimes you find, I mean, if, for example, there are Muslims in the who are asking for reservations, right? And I think, if I'm not wrong, some states even have it to some
They
extent.
already have a significant presence in the Assam Legislative Assembly. I'll of course come to this question when I address the recent issues on child marriage and all others. So,
Okay, so let's talk about the child marriage issue, since that is something which is very pertinent. So my question to you is: there's been Mr. Biswas, who's Himanta Biswas, who's now the Chief Minister of Assam. He's recently launched this drive against child marriages, right, in the state of Assam. So what is the? I mean, why this sudden need to launch this drive? And maybe you can explain, the what I asked you about the Mia community. You could link it up with the previous question as well.
yeah, so yes, as I already explained, Assam, the state of Assam has been bearing the brunt of massive demographic transition since the past several decades. And the current chief minister of the state, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, is trying to get a grip of the situation through certain important policy measures and decisions. Now, yes, coming to your specific question, and the specific issue that you have raised concerning the recent drive that has been launched by the government of Assam against the menace of child marriage in the state. Now, see, there are certain very important aspects associated with this problem, such as the high rates of maternal mortality in Assam. Why have most of the arrests that have been made so far in connection with cases related to child marriage are concentrated mostly in those districts of the state where the so called minority community outnumbers the so called majority? So, these are some very crucial issues that we need to address in order to get a holistic picture of the problem. It was on January 23rd, 2023, that Chief Minister Dr. Sharma had announced that the government of Assam would launch a major statewide drive against child marriages. And he had also mentioned that the main targets of the government will be the mullahs and the Maulavis, who are notoriously known for encouraging and facilitating such marriages. One of the main reasons behind the increasing incidences of teenage pregnancy, maternal and infant mortalities in the state. Accordingly, a major statewide crackdown on child marriages was launched in Assam in the first week of February 2023, in which the Assam police had arrested several thousands of people from different districts of the state for marrying girls below the age of 18 years, and they were booked under provisions of the POCSO Act and the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. Now, quite expectedly, most of the districts in Lower Assam and Central Assam, from where the maximum number of such arrests have been reported, are Muslim dominated. It is a very, very serious situation in Assam because over the past few years, cases of child marriage through court affidavits have seen a huge increase in these districts. In fact, Dhubri district of Assam was in the news few years back when a video of a woman being stripped naked and beaten by a mob just for filing a police complaint against the marriage of her minor son went viral. Nine of the state's districts reportedly figure among the top 100 districts of India with high incidences of child marriages. And Dhubri district is ranked 17 in this list. Now, as I mentioned, as per the census data of 2011, Muslims comprised around 34.22% of the 3 crore population of Assam, and Dhubri district, which also happens to be the constituency of AIUDF chief and perfume baron Maulana Badruddin Ajmal, had the largest Muslim population of 80%. Now, here I would also like to mention about an article that was published in the Northeastern edition of the Times of India on the 7th of July 2021, in which a professor from the Center for Population Studies at the Guwahati University had clearly stated that child marriage amongst the Muslims of Assam was increasing at an exponential rate of 14.9%, whereas amongst the Hindus, this figure was just 4%. Now, how do these illegal marriages take place among the Muslims? What is the modus operandi? What is the nexus behind the social evil afflicting the Muslim society? Among the Muslims, most of these marriages are fixed via legal affidavits that are prepared by advocates, and this takes place prior to the formal nikah ceremony. And such affidavits are prepared for a minimum fees varying between rupees 500 to rupees 1000 on mutually agreed terms between the future groom and the parents of the minor girl child. Now, in most such cases, the groom happens to be at least 20 to 30 times older than the girl child, who is still a minor and has not yet attained the age of consent at the time of the preparation of the legal affidavit. These affidavits are later authenticated by the notary of a lower court in the presence of a Maulana or a Maulavi. So there is an entire network in the administration facilitating these marriages. Now, here arises the most basic and fundamental problem, because it is mentioned in the affidavit that the girl would be married only after she attains the legal age of marriage, that is 18 years. But in most of the cases, she is made to enter into wedlock soon after the signing of the agreement between the two parties. After the marriage, the minor girl becomes pregnant, which naturally leads to a sharp rise in cases of maternal and infant mortality, arising mainly from certain obvious health related complications associated with an early pregnancy. And in Assam, teenage pregnancy is high at an alarming rate of 16.8%. And most importantly, what has yet not been reported in the media with respect to this entire drive against child marriage in the state that is going on is that there has been a huge spike in the rates of abortion among child brides in the Muslim dominated districts after this drive was launched by the government of Assam. So, in this context, referring to your previous question, the vastly changing demographic tables of different communities in the state of Assam is something which we cannot ignore. During the period from the year 1981 till 2011, the overall average growth rate of the population of Assam, if we see, it was much below the national average. And Assam has been able to maintain its annual population growth rate at 1.6%. But during the 2001 and 2011 censuses, it was found that the Muslim population is growing at a rate of 29%. But the Hindu population in the state had come down drastically from 22% to 16%, and it further reduced to 10% during the last two censuses. And at present, when you are asking me about the present context, the Muslim votes are a determining factor in at least 30 to 35 seats out of the total 126 seats in the Assam Legislative Assembly. And out of Assam's 34 districts in total, 12% and more Muslim population resides in 19 districts. And in 7 of these districts out of the 19, the Muslim population constitutes more than 50%, which is actually a dangerous trend. Because if we look at the crime statistics of these districts, different kinds of crimes and other illegal activities such as cattle smuggling, child trafficking, prostitution, etc., are one of the highest in these districts. And there has also been a continuous disappearance of non-Muslim communities from places such as Dhubri, Borpeta, and Nagaon over the years. And several villages in these districts, yeah, yes.
I
So
wanted to ask you about, since you're mentioning these issues, what about love jihad cases, like cases of women being groomed, young girls being groomed by Muslim boys, young boys?
same,
Does that
when we,
pattern
yeah,
exist?
when we the same statistics in the districts of Lower Assam, Central Assam, Nagaon, Morigaon, and in the districts of Barak Valley, the crime graph is shockingly high when compared to the other districts. So all kinds of illegal activities, as I mentioned, child trafficking, cattle smuggling, cases of love jihad, they are one of the highest in these districts. And several villages in the Muslim majority districts like Gwalpara, Dhubri, Borpeta, Nagaon, that were once Hindu majority, have now become completely Muslim majority. And you know there, the picture is clear. There has been a disproportionate growth of the Muslim population vis-a-vis other communities, especially the Hindus in Assam. In fact, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, when he was the education minister in the cabinet of former chief minister Sarbananda Sonowal, he had to personally intervene and pass an order which mentioned that TET qualified female teachers who are appointed in the Muslim dominated districts of Assam, they had to be immediately transferred from those districts and posted to other safer places, taking into account their safety and security.
Has the dip in population of the Hindus in these districts, is it so? It could have only happened because as a result of one or two things. One, was there an active, were they driven away from these regions, or were they converted?
There has been, yes, there has been a planned program of driving away the people from these regions. And most of these regions, which are now dominated by I refer to them as EBOM, East Bengal Origin Muslims. Most of these districts, which are dominated by this community of Muslims, they once happened to be the bastions of different Vanavasi communities of Assam, the Boros, Missings, Kocharis, and they were systematically driven out from their own homeland, and gradually these lands came to be occupied by these infiltrators.
Right. Finally, I think let's talk before we conclude,
Sure.
Ankita ji, because you have such information and this. So, and I know that this program is not doing justice to your, your scholarship, because you've
No,
studied
no.
this and you studied this in detail. But I know, even for people, I know this is a lot of information, because for them to process it, it will take some time. But I do want to end this conversation with you talking about, because this is very pertinent, about what's the event, how is the church, the evangelism, which denomination of Christianity, is it Catholicism or Protestantism? What is, what's happening there?
Yeah, yes, Pujitaji, well put. Yes, here I would like to refer to an important incident since you are talking about evangelism and since we were talking about the drug problem just few minutes back. So, this is an incident with reference to the Assam Mizoram border dispute of July 2021. So, interestingly, the timing of the occurrence of this border conflict between Assam and Mizoram had coincided with the arrest of this one self-styled godman whose name was Ranjan Chutia for spreading Christianity in Assam. Since the past several years, this person, Ranjan Chutia, has been instrumental in facilitating the conversion of Hindus from both Upper Assam and Lower Assam into Christianity by faking his church as a Namghar. Namghar, which is the Vaishnavite prayer hall cum cultural center of the Assamese Hindus. He runs the World Healing Prayer Center at a village called Dumordolong at Moran in Dibrugarh district, which has emerged as a hotspot of Christian conversion activities in entire Upper Assam that shares a border contiguous with the Catholic Christian dominated states of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. Now, talking about the proselytization of the Hindu population. Of Assam, it has been taking place through four different pastorates or administrative divisions that are located in Guwahati, Tezpur, Dibrugarh, and Silchar. Now, these pastorates are a part of the AMF. AMF is the Assam Mission Field that operates from the Mizo Presbyterian Church compound, which is located at a place called Satribari in Guwahati. Now, we need to understand the larger angle behind this. Now, the different mission stations or field offices of the AMF, that is the Assam Mission Field, across the four pastorates are generally disguised as churches, missionary schools, and other administrative offices. How they are operated? They are operated through a network of agents who mostly happen to be newly inducted local converts. They work under the supervision of well trained Mizo officials who are designated as field secretaries and who are extremely well trained in the Missionary Training College of Aizawl to read, write, and speak fluent Assamese before they are posted to their respective pastorates in Assam. For the successful execution of their religious proselytization agenda, agents for different communities of Hindus in Assam, such as the Hindu Bengalis, the tea garden laborers, the Nepalis, etc., have been specifically designated as a part of the Assam mission field. Identification of local communities and individuals within their mission stations based on certain specific parameters for the purpose of conversion takes place very carefully and systematically through an exercise called vulnerability mapping that is based upon a determination of the different categories of population who can be easily converted or who are vulnerable to religious conversions, like people residing in the underdeveloped and remote localities, single parent orphans, families which are devastated by natural disasters, economic or some other medical catastrophe, etc. Now, few months back from today, three Swedish nationals and one German national were detained by the Assam police on the ground of violation of tourist visa rules. Now, quite expectedly, these tourists had come to attend a so-called religious prayer meeting organized by a Christian organization in Dibrugarh district. Now, if we recall, it was just a few days before this incident, during the time of the annual Durga Puja celebrations last year, that a Shiva temple was looted and vandalized by miscreants in a Bengali Hindu dominated locality of the same district, Dibrugarh district. Now, this is a region where Christian conversions have become rampant in the past few decades. The local Hindus of the area too had later raised the allegation that mainly because of post conversion radicalization among the newly converted Christians, incidents like the vandalization and desecration of Hindu religious spaces of worship have become very, very common in these areas. And here, before concluding, I would like to mention that in today's date, the share of Christians in two of Assam's hill districts, which are also badly affected by the insurgency, that is Karbi Anglong and Dima Hasao, and in some of the Boro dominated districts districts too, such as Kokrajhar and Udalguri, bordering Bhutan, is much higher. Christianity today is one of the fastest growing religions in Assam after Islam. Just before Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma had launched the drive against the child marriage racket in Assam in the first week of February, several churches were demolished by the government of Assam in Chirang district along the Assam Bhutan border in the BTAD area, that is the Bodoland Territorial Area district. It was later reported that these churches had been constructed illegally by encroaching upon government forest lands by Catholic missionaries from Nagaland, who have always been at the forefront of spreading Christianity in Assam in a big way. But unfortunately, there was not much coverage of this in the national media. Uh,
True. True.
so
This is yes. Unfortunately, it doesn't get it doesn't make it to front page news. But
and I think before concluding, sorry to interrupt in between, since you were putting across this question about the link between insurgency and Christianity, there is this very good example of the NSC and IM, because this Christian insurgent outfit is deeply involved in the entire game plan of religious conversion, targeting the different Vanavasi groups residing in the plains and hills of Assam. In fact, the NSC and IM, in its territorial ambition of establishing a greater Nagalim, has been expanding its militant come evangelical activities for the past several years in those districts of Assam bordering Nagaland, including the Zeme Naga dominated areas of Dima Hasao district. Because this region has a significant geopolitical importance from the strategic and national security points of view, it provides a safe corridor for the extremist groups of Nagaland and Manipur to reach Bangladesh. So I think by now we can clearly understand how religious conversions, infiltration pose a direct threat to India's national security, more so because the Northeast is a geopolitically sensitive border region, which has always been on the potential radar of the missionary. So, same is the case with Punjab, another border region.
um, it's and of course they're even doing it in the south. They're doing it in the south also. I mean, even with although south is, of course it's surrounding, and it's a different, it's always the same, the culprits are the same, the usual suspects. I don't think communism has made an inroad as yet into the northeast. I don't know, I'm not sure. Has it Marxism, has it made any inroads there as yet?
The entire idea of seceding from the Indian state, of carrying out a revolution against the Indian state, I think that is deeply inspired by the communist ideals.
So, how, Ankita ji, before we end, just a few words from you in terms of how do you dharmic in his outlook and so on? How do you think that this is going to play out, especially when you have somebody like that who is taking on these problems head on and he's dealing with it in the
Yes.
manner that they should be dealt with? What do you think is going to be the solution? And yeah, in the future.
True. Actually, after several long years, Assam has got a very strong leader, a strong face, somebody who has always had an illustrious political career spanning over 3 to 4 decades, and someone who has worked with the who's who of Assamese politics since the days of the All Assam Students Union and the Assam Gana Parishad, to being a loyal Congress Party worker for more than 20 years. Now, if we recall, uh, referring to your question, the Assam Assembly elections of 2021, uh, after which Dr. Sharma became the Chief Minister of Assam, these elections were fought on the premise of a war of two civilizations. Now, this phrase was coined by Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma himself during the campaigning for the elections. It gradually became very popular as the electoral prospects of the Congress Party and Maulana Badruddin Ajmal's All India United Democratic Front (AIUDF) alliance started becoming clear in the Muslim dominated seats of the Barak Valley, a few districts of central Assam and lower Assam. Now, being the master strategist that Dr. Sharma is, he understood very well in the very beginning that the sentiments of the Assamese people in those districts where the Muslims were still not in a majority had to be effectively channelized, not just in order to ensure the defeat of the Congress led Grand Alliance, but also to make the prospects of the BJP stronger and clearer in the Hindu majority areas of the Brahmaputra Valley. Now, prior to this, under his initiative as the Education and Finance Minister of the government of Assam, when Sarbananda Sonowal was the chief minister, the Assam Repealing Act 2020 was passed under his initiative to abolish the Assam Madrasa Education Provincialization Act of 1995 and the Assam Madrasa Education Provincialization of Services of Employees and Reorganization of Madrasa Educational Institutions Act of 2018. Defying all forms of political correctness, Himanta Biswa Sarma had categorically informed in the Assam Legislative Assembly that the government of Assam had been spending a huge amount of rupees 260 crore annually for running the madrasas exclusively, and that the government cannot spend public money for religious teachings anymore. And after this decision on the closure of government funded madrasas in Assam, the ruling BJP government in the state made a decision to introduce the Assam Cattle Preservation Bill 2021 in the assembly. So this was immediately after Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma came to power, and the main purpose of this bill, as elucidated by the Chief Minister himself, was to impose a complete ban on the transportation of cattle outside the state, and also to check the problem of cattle smuggling through those districts of the state that share a border contiguous to the international boundary with Bangladesh. And unapologetically, Dr. Sharma had made the issue of protecting the Assamese culture and civilization from Islamic demographic expansionism the battle cry of the Assam Assembly elections of 2021. He was perhaps the first leader in independent India to fearlessly declare that the BJP does not seek votes from the 35% East Bengal origin Muslim community in Assam to win elections. And at the same time, he also accused this community of posing an open threat to the Assamese Hindu culture and language, and as well as the composite Bharatiya identity and civilization. Yes, there is an unprecedented popularity of Dr. Sharma in the politics of Assam, and together with an almost redundant opposition, this has helped the BJP grow by leaps and bounds in the state. Actually, it's been because of the phenomenal work of Dr. Sharma in his own constituency, that is Jalukbari in Guwahati, which is known for its huge share of literate voters. And this has actually gone a long way in enabling the chief minister to set up a strong support base of all sections of the voters. He is undoubtedly today the most visible and vocal face of the BJP in the Northeast. And wherever he goes, it seems there is always a charismatic wave that follows him. And yeah, and the continuous eviction drives as well are very important, because besides the relentless fight against drugs and drug mafias, continuous eviction drives to free all lands in Assam from encroachers of suspicious nationality have become a regular affair under his dispensation. And also the signing of peace accords with different insurgent groups and their leaders from time to time. So he's someone who understands the many layers of politics very well, having been into it since a long time now. And he therefore knows how to solve issues with the right political intent by undertaking some bold measures. Even with regard to resolving the boundary issues, Assam faces a lot of complex problems with respect to its boundary with the other hill states of the Northeast. And in the history of Assam, Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma has been the first to actually undertake this initiative and begin the process of negotiations with the chief ministers from the rest of the northeastern states. So the Assam Meghalaya boundary dispute is almost on the way towards resolution, and talks are also going on between Assam and Arunachal Pradesh at present. So we do see light at the end of the tunnel with regards to the boundary issues.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. धन्यवाद. Namaskar.